All right, hello guys, welcome into our weekly Tech Thursday class. If we have not met, my name is Robin Hooper and I am the Agent Services Coordinator at the Keller Williams in Kirkland, one of the BKCO sister offices, so to speak. So today we are going to talk about managing your pipeline through opportunities. So I know that everybody has probably heard about opportunities within command because that is where you are required to turn in your listing contracts, your sales contracts, as well as communicate commissions with your MCA. But what we're going to look at is the other side of opportunities, which I think is sorely underused. I did a lot of research in this last week because I too am guilty of sorely underusing this feature in the platform. And it is amazing how much you can automate this system, removing additional spreadsheets or systems that you might be using. So I want to dive into that and show you guys how to use this to maximize your business. So to access command, if you have not been on it before, you go to agent.kw.com. You don't need the login part, it'll default to that. But agent.kw.com gets you to the login page. You will use your Keller Williams login that you use for everything to access this. Once you get into here, over on the left is your navigation. If you click on the red box with the KW, it will pop this menu out so that you can see the explanation of what all these little symbols mean. So for us today, we're going to dive into opportunities, which is the little handshake on the left. So from here, if you have sold a property or have started learning this system, you have seen this before. What this is your pipeline. When you turn in a transaction to the office, it's going to end up on this pipeline somewhere, whether that is one of your listings or you're representing the buyer and you turn in your purchase and sale agreement. So before we dive too much into this, I want to explain the intention of Keller Williams behind the design of this. So with this portion in specific, this was designed to help you track your numbers. That's something we say a lot in the company, know your numbers. And this is a system designed to help you do that. And it goes a little bit deeper than what you are able to track manually. It will look at things like your conversion rates. When you meet with a client, what is the likelihood that after that meeting, they're going to choose you as their listing or buyer's agent? What is the likelihood of when you put a property under contract, it then moves forward to actually closing? So it looks at those individual stages of the transaction and will collect data based on your activity through these phases to help you better understand your strengths and your weaknesses within your business. And having that insight gives you the ability to focus on what you can improve and have higher conversion rates, leading, of course, to higher income, which is kind of the point, right? So on this page here at the top, we have listings in green, buyers in red, and then down at the bottom is leases in purple. So in our office, and I believe most offices, leases do not mean actual leases. This is used for commercial properties since there is not a placeholder for commercial yet. And I will not be touching on commercial today. We're going to focus mostly on the listing and the buyer side with residential properties. Down here at the bottom, there is a little breakdown of the numbers, your probable income versus potential. And you also see this here on the right of these categories. So what these two numbers mean is when you have a property in the cultivate, appointment, active, or under contract phase, that is potential income. because it hasn't closed yet. It's possible that you might earn that income, but there's no guarantee based on conversion rate numbers. Now, probable income, that is typically a more likely number of what your closing amount will be based also on conversion. So if your conversion rates are much higher, you're going to have more information in the probable category versus potential, if that makes sense. But use of the system is important to hone in those conversion numbers. A lot of you won't have those numbers, and that's okay. The system has a lot of preset numbers in there based on other data and statistics that have been gathered to help them determine that. So what I want to do at this point is I'm going to start right here from the top, and I'm going to click on this cultivate button in listings. So within each type of transaction, whether that's a listing or the buy side, you have these stages up here, stages of the transaction: cultivate, appointment, active, under contract, and closed. And then within each stage, there are phases. Now, those phases you don't see, well, the phases are the watch, nurture, and hot. So let's say I want to be very diligent in tracking my leads movement through these phases. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to create an opportunity. And now this, again, is not an opportunity class to turn in your listings and all of that. We're just focusing right now on the individual phases and how you can use those for productivity. So I'm going to grab a client. I'm going to go with Michael Scarn. And I'm only going to update what I have to. So let's say probably, now let me back up. Let's say Michael Scarn is somebody that you met at an open house, and this person was willing to share their information with you, willing to have additional conversation, and you may not have secured any sort of appointment yet, but you're like, I think if I work this lead, I might be able to get that appointment. So we're going to put them in the cultivate stage because that's literally where you're growing that relationship. And so let's hypothetically say probably it might be a 3% commission rate. We're going to put them in the cultivate stage, and we're going to leave this at watch. Okay, now we don't need to worry about any of this for now. We're just going to head back to that sales pipeline. And now you can see that that number has updated to 1. Let it load. Well, when this loads, we'll have Michael Scarn over here in the watch phase. I'm so impatient. Sorry, one moment. Okay, there we go. There is Michael Scarn in the watch phase. So down here, we see that this says 0 out of 2. And the reason for that is within each of these phases, watch, nurture, hot, you can create checklists of what you need to do during each part of your relationship with this client. So if they're in the watch phase under cultivate, what that means to me, and this is something that's a little bit subjective as far as what the names of these phases mean to you. To me, when I see somebody in a watch phase, that means that maybe they're not ready. Maybe he needs like a year before he's ready to buy. You don't want to not have communication with that client, but maybe that looks like you're setting them up on a market report. So they're hearing from you on a monthly basis. You're setting them up on some sort of communication so that you don't lose that contact. So when I click on this checklist, yours won't have anything yet. but I have started adding a few phases in here. And so I have these documents that I'm going to share with you guys that I got from Facebook, and they are checklists of what you could be doing and should be doing in every phase and stage of your experience with that client. So I know that if you have been in the business a little bit longer, your process may differ from this. This is something that was created by another agent within the company, and then they shared it on the command page. There are a ton of other checklists in there for this same thing. So if you don't love this, then feel free to pull another one from like the KW Command Facebook group, or I believe Command Your Conversion Facebook group. They also feature things like this. But I am going to share this with you so that you can use this as a guideline. And if you do more, then feel free to customize that. Make this yours. So I'm going to pop that attachment into the chat before I get too far into this. Give me one moment to pull that up. Where is it? Sorry, guys. I thought I had that right at the top. Of course I don't. One moment. And I know that some of you are on your phones, so then, oh my. So then these links are not going to work, or the PDF upload won't work. So I am going to give you the link so that you can access those in my drive and save them to yours as well. So I did just upload that. You should have those available to you, because I won't, well, yeah, I won't have them up side by side. But so we're in the watch stage under cultivate. We're still in the same spot. So when you first meet that lead, when you realize that they might be several months out, what kind of activities do you want to do? So you want to make sure you have their phone number. You want to make sure you have their email. And then I'm going to get their address. And you know what? I did not even show you how I ended up here. So let me back up really quick. So I'm here within Cultivate. Now you can do this two different ways. If I'm out here, it doesn't matter which one of these you pick. It's going to take you to the same place pretty much every time. And you can just toggle through up here throughout these stages. Now, if you come up here to the right, you can click Edit Stages, or if you already have someone in, you can click on the checklist that is previewed right here. So we'll go to Edit Stages. Now, I can edit the checklist for a specific lead, or I can edit the checklist for all of my leads within that phase. So that's what we're doing here. So again, the names of those are the Watch, Nurture, Hot. If you wanted to rename one of those, because some of these phases, they were renamed. Whomever created this document, some of these phases they combined, some of them they removed, and feel free to do that. Make this yours. So if I come over here to that pencil, I can come in and rename that stage. I do like the name, so I'm going to leave it there. And then there is this 5% probability. This is the probability that the transaction will result in a closing. So 5% is automatically put in there because that is what Keller Williams has determined is the usual conversion rate for this stage. Now, if you have been in the business for a minute, you might know at least a rough idea of what your conversion is in that situation. So feel free to modify that. I'm going to leave it at 5%. And then when I come over here to checklist, it says 0 out of 2. I'm going to click on that. And that is how it pulls up this short list that I've already started. So when I come over here on the left to add item, this is where I can add get address of lead. And then here, there's this client update button that you can click. So within the system, you are able to set up all of these checklists in a way that your client would get an email notification daily of what activities you have completed on your checklist. I personally don't know why you would want to do that. I think that communication, yes, amazing. Keeping communication with your people, let them know what you're doing on their behalf. But I don't know, I mean, you don't want them to see these kind of things. Like a lot, they don't need to know how the sausage is made in a lot of these situations. If you set up your checklist in a way that portions are for you only and other portions you word in a way that you are totally okay with your client seeing, that's great too. You just want to be aware that however you put this explanation in, if you click client update, they are going to see all of that verbiage. So I'm not going to click client update. I'm just going to click save. So on this sheet that I am working off of, the cultivate watch stage only has 3 steps. Now, I'm going to leave it like that for the sake of simplicity. And then I'm going to move on to nurture. So under nurture, actually, let me go over here. This shows a probability of 7%. So going from watch to nurture, where you are more actively working towards a relationship with that client, that would be more nurturing, the same way you would nurture anything else. So this is where you might be more active in pursuing that client. So that makes your probability go up because your conversation with that client is also increasing. So same thing, we click on the checklist, add an item. On this sheet, there's a follow-up call. So with my explanation of meeting Michael Scarn at an open house, if he maybe had questions, you could give them a call with their answers or give them a call and ask if they had any questions later. If there's any other properties that they've seen that they had questions on, do they need recommendations for a lender, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So I'm not going to go in and fill in every single one of these, but as you can see, once you sit down and you have a checklist, this is pretty quick, and this will be a possible or an option for you to eliminate any double work that you're doing someplace else. I know for me, oftentimes, quite a long time ago, prior to being a Keller Williams agent, when we managed transactions, it was a paper checklist. So, you know, that's definitely gone by the wayside for most of us. But if you are still, you know, attached to your paper checklist, this is another option so that you're not missing a beat. So I'm going to hit save here, and I'm going to go back one. So if we go to the appointment stage, this is the first one where they modified the names of the phases down here. So I'm going to click up here again with edit stages. And so for the appointment section, they changed this first one, not to scheduling, because that is, I mean, scheduling an appointment, yes, but scheduling initial appointment. Once you meet with somebody, according to the Keller Williams system, you have a 10% chance of converting that client, or excuse me, that lead into a client. Now, I hope your conversion rates are higher than that. That is a really conservative number. But if you are brand new, that may be very likely a reality because you are kind of cutting your teeth on those first couple of clients. So again, I'm just going to leave that number there. The next one is holding the appointment. They don't say that on this sheet, but I understand that that's what they mean. So I'm just going to word it that way and try to spell things right. Holding that initial appointment. So, I just said that the conversion rate is probably 10% when you meet with them. I apologize. That was when you schedule the appointment. If you're able to schedule them, there's a 10% chance you'll convert them. If you meet with them, there's a 20% chance that you'll convert them. And on this sheet as well, you can see that their numbers are slightly different. They put a 30% conversion rate for that initial appointment, which actually is probably this one here, now that I look at these two. So with the initial appointment held, we are going to convert that or change that to 30, just to keep in line with what Keller Williams suggests. And then we're going to change this next one to contract appointment. If you have not sold a property yet, oftentimes you're going to meet with a client the first time. If it's a listing situation, to take a look at the property, chat about their goals, what they're hoping to accomplish, if there's any sort of situations that are going to make it difficult to sell. And then at that time, you may do paperwork, but you may not do it all. You may need to schedule another time to finish all of that paperwork or whatever that might look like. If your process is different, feel free to change the name of your phase. Now, in this this worksheet, there is a fourth phase. So we're going to come up here to the right and click Add a Stage. And we're going to add post-appointment. So this would be a checklist of the things that you are going to want to do after you've held that appointment. This sheet has it at a 40% conversion rate. If you complete these items, that you will convert that client. And we're going to leave it in position 4, meaning it's the 4th on the list. If you needed to rearrange these, you can just grab these buttons, drag them up and down. Super easy to switch that up. So now I kind of realized that I didn't completely explain the reason that the stages are named the way that they are. So as far as verbiage goes, these active, under contract, close, cultivate, appointment, these are considered stages. And then the milestones below the stages are called phases. Not that it really matters, but if you're taking another training, stages are the top one, phases fall under that. All right. So I mentioned what cultivate was. When you maybe just meet that client, you have not had an appointment with them yet, and you are still working on getting them to warm up to you enough to then schedule the appointment. Once you have the appointment, you're going to then hopefully get paperwork signed. And then the next stage after that is moving on to active, with putting the property on the market. What is the protocol for showings? They even have a stage for negotiations. And some of this stuff, particularly in our market right now, it may not make sense to have a million things under the negotiations checklist because it may happen repeatedly. However, if it's helpful to you to have those prompts of what you need to be accomplishing, then by all means, fill that out. Under contract means just that the listing you took has an accepted contract, and then there are individual phases where the contract moves through there with opening escrow, inspections, appraisal, getting through financing, and then getting that clear to close. And all along that way, there are things that you need to be doing as an agent, even though primarily the responsibility does fall on escrow and financing. And then the closed phase. So this is not actually closed, if I understand this correctly. So it says closed even if the property hasn't closed entirely, but for the purposes of the checklist, these would be the things you need to do after your property closes. If it's your listing, you need to have the sign removed, the lockbox removed. Maybe you need to get a closing gift for your clients, update your database, all of that kind of stuff. And again, if you don't have this process in place, this is an awesome place to start. I have two other documents that I want to share with you guys that might be helpful. These are checklists specific to our BKCO offices and the paperwork requirements for each of those. They are branded to my office. It doesn't matter. Just ignore that, regardless of what office that you're in. Give me one moment to pull that up because I'm talking and looking and struggling. One moment. Okay, so I'm going to pull these up on my screen because these might help with your checklist as well. So I included a buyer checklist as well as a listing checklist. For continuity, I'm going to click on the listing one. This is something that Janine Wood, the Director of Compliance for all of the Ben Kinney offices, and I put together with a list of what forms are required, any tips to help you fill those out, and then there's a suggested listing process following this. A lot of this may be on these printouts that I attached, but some of this might be local as well. So this will help you flesh out your checklist as well, especially if you're just getting started. So I hope that these will help, and especially if, I mean, it doesn't even matter if you're new. I think that, you know, when you're in a hurry or if you, this is your 10th offer, it's 11:30 at night and you're fuzzy, you know, then having something to go by to make sure you have all your paperwork in order is always helpful. So with something like that PDF checklist, you could easily come into here, like maybe under active, or if you're going back to appointment and you're doing the contract appointment, maybe you have a list there of all of the paperwork that is required to make sure you don't miss a beat. So now let's pretend that we have plugged in all of this information that I have shared with you, and you have all of your phases and all of your stages completely fleshed out. I wish I had more in here to demonstrate this, but so when you have a client, you go in, you flesh these out, and that's great that you have all of these checklists in place. But if you don't use them, then there's no point in having them. So for Michael Scarn, I met him at the open house. I'm going to open this up, and I did add that third item on this checklist, but it does take approximately 5 minutes for Command to update these phases. So don't be surprised if it's not there immediately after you put it in. It does take a few minutes to update. But I'm going to come in here, I'm going to click on his checklist, and I'm going to say I did these things. So checklist has been completed, and close it. So now I've got that info, and then I'm going to move him over to nurture because now I'm going to start marketing to him. And then you see this number reset. So I can come back here, I can go back to this checklist, I can go to this one. So you don't literally have to drag them from one phase to the other. You can just skip through this way as well. So I'm going to pretend that I gave Michael Scarn a call. We talked about their wants, needs. Maybe they'd asked me about how old the roof was. And, you know, maybe I could have gotten that answer at the open house. Maybe that's a really great opportunity to collect their information and follow up with them. So I'm going to follow up with them, and then I'm going to put them on a drip campaign, which I can do directly from within Command. That's not what today's class is, but that opportunity is there. So I'm going to pretend I added them to that and close them out. If I click on Michael Scarn's name, it's going to pull up what I already put in as far as his opportunity goes. None of this stuff matters until you have a contract. So if this information isn't correct over here, I mean, it does matter for purposes of database management, of course, but like this commission stuff, these numbers, contract dates, you don't need any of that because you don't have that yet. You haven't gotten to that phase yet. So don't worry about that and what this side looks like until you're over into this portion. So coming back to the pipeline. Now let's say, all right, I got through all of this. We had a conversation. He's actually pre-approved, ready to go. Or excuse me, this is a listing. So maybe he got a job transfer that he wasn't expecting. He has a month to sell the property. So we're going to drop him into the appointment phase. And it's just that easy. Well, as far as moving them through in command, it's that easy. And then it's going to start over with these checklists. So you can move your people through. And then one of the big benefits of using this and using it at a high level is not only to keep yourself organized, to make sure that tasks are being taken care of on time, but if you have maybe an admin, an assistant, a TC, whatever that might be, who's doing some of this for you, you don't need to go to them and ask them if they had done it. Because if they checked it off in here, you can assume that the work was done. So you have that silent communication, which, you know, at 11:30 at night is golden if you're able to get those answers without having to bother somebody. Really quick, I'm going to move this back to cultivate because I want to show you one more thing. I'm going to go back in time, pretend I still have those outstanding things that I need to accomplish for this lead. If I come up here on the left and click on home, your homepage might look different. You are able to come up here on the right and customize this so that it looks how you want it to look. Down here, if you are using the pipeline to its maximum capacity, you're going to be able to see right here how you're doing on your goals. Now, granted, you need to set a goal, which again is not for this class, but if you are coming in here and you set your goal, whether that's your GCI units, whatever that looks like, over here, it's going to break down where you're at a glance. So then you know your numbers, which again, we talk about a lot within the company. Here at the top, there's this task portion, and it defaults to all tasks, which covers tasks assigned to a contact, not the tasks within the opportunity pipeline, which is kind of confusing. So I want to say that again. When you add somebody as a contact, I'll buzz over there really quick so I can show you what I'm talking about. I clicked over here on the little person, which if we pop that out, that is where the contacts live. Click on Michael Scarn. And within here, I can add additional tasks over on the right. You have this whole little panel of information. And if I came in here, I could add a task, open prelim title. And that is due today. Great. If I come back home, you see that that task populates here where there was nothing before. Now, we are talking about opportunities. So if I come over here to all tasks, we have this little drop-down menu. I can change this to opportunity tasks. Now, it doesn't show anything here because I've been moving pretty fast through the phases. If I come back into opportunities though, click on cultivate. You can see that I've done 0 out of 2 of these because I went back and unchecked those. So after this has a moment to process what I've done, when I come back up here to the home page, my opportunity tasks will be here too. So when you're starting your day, it could be as easy as, all right, here's my tasks that I've created for individual contacts that maybe didn't fit within the realm of these checklists that I've created. go through there, and then you can go to your opportunity tasks. And if you're managing your pipeline, this becomes an easy button for making sure your transactions are moving forward, that everything that needs to happen at each stage is happening, and then you're on top of it, which is, I totally geek out over this. I love systems. I love clean processes. I love it when a system can do the work for me. And that is this intention behind Opportunity Pipeline. I know that I have talked really fast and I talked a lot. Do you guys have any questions about what I covered, or any concerns, or anything I didn't explain very well?
This was great, Robin. I learned so much. Thank you.
Yeah, you are welcome. And yeah, like I said, even though there are these checklists that I gave you, I'm going to pop into this Facebook group really quick. So I don't know how many groups you guys are a part of. I have managed to join more than I can follow, but there are a few groups that are specific to Command. So like Command Your Conversion, 37,000 members. And so a lot of the tech gurus within the company, they get on here and they have classes as well. So if there's something else you wanted to learn, you can dive in there. But if you come over to more and click on files, there is a million things in here that people have uploaded to share. Right here, opportunity checklist. So this is somebody else, a different checklist than this. So if this doesn't do it for you, come in here and grab another one. Buyer and seller checklist. I think this is actually the one that we're using. Kathy Coomer, thank you very much. So this is something that's amazing about Keller Williams and that I absolutely love is this culture of sharing and being willing to help one another. So don't try to reinvent the wheel. Somebody else has done this already and they probably were able to spend a ton of time on it and really dial it in for you. So check out Command Your Conversion. Check out, what is the other one? Oh, KW Command, 36,000 members. Again, go over to that files section. TC checklist, another same person, opportunity checklist. This Wasaki team, they have checklists down here, buyer and listing. So feel free to R&D, rip off and duplicate. No need to reinvent the wheel if somebody's done it for you. Trish had a question. I signed up a bit late. Is there another drive file besides the buyer? Okay, yeah, let me upload those links one more time. So buyer and seller checklists, I just uploaded that. That is these documents that have all of these stages spelled out from that Kathy Kumar. Give me one moment. I need a few more things in my drive. Okay, KWE. So these listing and buyer checklists that say KWE listing checklist, KWE buyer checklist. These, if you came on late, these are something that I developed with Janine Wood, the Director of Compliance. So I feel very, very confident that if you're following these in your own offices, you are absolutely fine. Just ignore that KWE marketing. I re-uploaded all three of those, so you guys should be able to download those and add them to your drive. Use them as you would like. Do you guys have any other questions, any concerns? All right. Well, That was everything I have. The only other little command tip I can throw out there is make sure you have your marketing profiles dialed in. If you haven't done anything yet in command, that will be super helpful with syncing your information across the board. If you need more training or help with anything tech-wise, we do have a tech channel where all of these classes have been recorded and this one will be uploaded. I am going to add that to the chat as well, so you can dive into those. And then other resources would be YouTube, which is amazing. I go on there and I'll search command, comma, whatever I'm looking for, and then be sure to sort by upload date, because some of the videos that are out there could be 2 years old, and this tech, it's a living thing. It's changing well, right now they're focusing on stabilization, but for the most part, it changes almost every day. So make sure you're watching videos that have happened within at least the last year, so that what you're looking at is accurate. If you guys have any questions, you need anything, feel free to reach out to your ASCs. We're all here to help. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you, Robin.
Of course. Have a really great day, you guys.